Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for requesting this private session that Joni and I are getting ready to do. If you have not already listened to the podcast episode, I always recommend starting there. If you're accessing this video from my private sessions resource, you'll see that the episode of the podcast is linked right underneath. So you can always start there. And we are going to be working on something that I think comes up for all of us today, and that is the idea of chaos or disorganization, organization, however you want to look at it in our lives, and whatever else comes up from there. So I've not heard anything about this from Joni beforehand other than the topic that we're thinking about looking into. So this is all fresh. And I guess at this point, Joni, like I'm just looking for you to tell me a little bit about the issue.
Well, I feel like let me change my microphone real quick. I feel like things would be more smooth for me and move faster if there was more organization. But I also it waxes and wanes for me, so I will get where I feel like I get organized and then it just like goes downhill. Perhaps there's no routine around it or as my energy ebbs and flows or my life gets busy and crazy, when I need the organization the most is when it's the worst, right?
Okay. So what things are you feeling are lacking organization right now?
Um, I mean, it's really across the board, like from my home environment, inside my head, my thoughts, my my operating procedures for my business are just kind of like how I feel like doing it today. And
Okay.
yeah,
So it's kind of a prevalent, is it a feeling? Would you call it a feeling? Or what is the feeling that you would associate with not feeling organized?
Hmm. Yeah, that's hard to put the first word was scattered, but that's not really a feeling. Um,
It's great though, and that is helpful. Does it create overwhelm, stress?
Yeah, I definitely get pieces of overwhelm. I get frustration, um,
I
which then
know,
sometimes leads that into my personal life, right? Too. Like I get frustrated with everybody else because of things aren't organized.
is that your like not self for human
Yeah.
design?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine too. So, okay. Um, yeah. Oh, and just like backstory for anybody watching, when Joni and I recorded the episode, we hadn't yet met each other in person, but we got to spend a life-changing, crazy weekend together a few weeks ago. So, and I know part of that we were kind of all experimenting with understanding our human design a little bit more. So I came to know mine, my husband's, my kids, everybody's since that retreat. I wasn't really familiar before that. Were you?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done the rest of my family, which I keep thinking about that. And it's like um the piece of like having to know the birth time. Like my husband has no idea when he was born. And I just have to go another thing of organization, find the little slips that say what time my kids were born.
That I had to do that too. I was like, how do I not remember any of these? Like, that's kind of crazy, but also not something you ever really need to know other than if you're looking up a human design chart. So you get frustrated, you feel overwhelmed, scattered. What else does this feeling of disorganization bring up for you? Are there any other ways that it's affecting you negatively?
Well, I think productivity, right?
Okay.
Because I spend when I do get into work mode, then I spend a lot of time trying to figure out where I was before and um, just I spend time organizing instead of being ready to roll.
Okay. Is there some like self-judgment that comes along with that too?
I'm sure there is.
Like a critical voice in your head that tells you that you should
Yeah.
be more organized or anything like that?
Yeah. Um,
What does the inner critic like to
I
say?
think, yeah, well, it's interesting because I think it happens with unawareness, right? Like um, I'm not consciously thinking about that critical voice, but I know it's there, just in the way I feel and the way. um, you know,
Is the theme of
I react.
disorganization something that has been like constant through your life, or did you feel like you used to be way more organized?
Um, I used to be well, I don't know if way more, but I definitely used to be more organized for sure when it was just me. It was a lot easier.
Me
Um,
too.
but I wouldn't say that I like even my background from growing up wasn't like a state of organization, right? It was a lot of ebb and flow of that. Just in the life we were, farmers, we all lived and worked at home and, so it was like there was just a lot of ebb and flow of organization there too. Yeah.
Cool. What would, like, if we could wave a magic wand and the things were organized that you want organized, what would that look like? What would be different and what would you have done?
hmm So I feel like in like my environment of my house, I would like not have any of the stuff I don't need. Um, and everything would kind of have its place. So like we knew where it was and it wasn't um, in our line of sight all the time, everything. Um, Caveat to that, like we have been under construction for 3 years. So like there is
Oh,
just a
wow.
piece of like stuff literally doesn't have a place right now because walls are down and different things like that. Um, but it wasn't that great before that either. So, um, and then I feel like flow, right? Like I feel like if there was some more organization in my business and in my life, there would be more flow because there would be less in the moment decisions and things would already be made and you would just know what was coming next and you would be able to move into that space without um, having to look for something or having to make a decision like, do I want to do this or do I want to do that or do I want to this or do I want to do that?
Right. Does it trip you up with decisions?
um, yeah, I think I feel a lot of the time like I just need to get organized to get moving. And so that just takes up time, but also less freedom in decisions, right? Because there's like all this other stuff in the way.
Gotcha. How much time or effort would it take for you to actually get things the way that you would like them?
And I think that's probably one of my biggest blocks because the perception there is it would take forever. So,
So then, do
so
you
I'm
avoid
sure I'm
it?
avoiding something that would take forever because that doesn't sound fun.
No, it doesn't. Um, does your husband or whoever else is in the house with you share the idea that it would be nice for things to be more organized? Like, would you have partnership and help in the projects?
I think that he would definitely like it. Um, I'm not sure how much help there would be.
Mm. So it's going to take forever and you have to do it alone.
That's my
That's the
perception at the
perception.
moment.
Okay. Um, and then what about the stuff with your business? How long would it take to get those kind of systems and things in place, do you think?
Yeah, that feels the same. It feels like very daunting to think about getting the systems in place.
Okay. So
Um,
definitely like overwhelmed.
I have no idea like how long it would take. So that's probably part of it. It's just not um like assigning time to tasks isn't a strong suit for me. Like it really
Yeah.
is
I had to
a
learn that one
growth
myself.
for
That
me.
was, yeah, for ADHD and executive functioning, that's a tough one. But I did start finding it to be really helpful to reverse engineer those kind of things. And now, about every 2 years, for the last about 7 years, I guess, my husband and I do like a full house clean out. But it takes about 6 months. And the first time it was nice because we had motivation to get the house ready to put on the market before we moved. Um, But since then, it's like, oh gosh, we don't ever want to get back to that place where things were like so out of control, or it felt like it was going to take forever just to do a room. Um, we started this year doing it, and we're down to everything's done except our basement. But our basement is several many thousand square feet. So it's a big basement, and there's a lot to do and go through down there. Plus it's like the gym, all the memories, all the kids clothing storage, all the whatever else storage, the second laundry room, the playroom, the kids toys, like it's a catch-all down there. So that for me is feeling daunting, but that then we just had to break down almost like it's 6 rooms down there instead of a one space area. Because the other rooms of the house, we usually just say one room for a weekend. And if we're going to be around, obviously sometimes a weekend doesn't work. But if we have a weekend that we can kind of commit and just do like 4 to 6 hours a day for 2 days, we can usually get a room done. Like, and that's kind of like the formula that we've come up with. And my biggest problem is sticking to one room. So like I bring laundry baskets, and it's like if it has to go to another part of the house because it doesn't belong in the part that it's in, it just goes in the basket. I stay in the room. Like that's the biggest thing for me. Or if it has some other place or designation, or it's a project in and of itself, like you find some, like, I don't know, like a broken birdhouse or something that needs to be fixed, not fixing it in the moment, it was like one of the biggest things for me. It's like, okay, that goes on a separate list, but that actually isn't part of the cleaning up of the room or the space. So those things have been really helpful for us, and I feel way more organized knowing that like I don't ever open drawers anymore that like haven't been opened for 10 years, or that it's like, what on earth am I keeping this for? That kind of stuff. So it's definitely doable. It's definitely doable. Let's go ahead and do some tapping on this productivity, limiting belief, overwhelm around organization. So if you, after we've kind of talked about all this and you're thinking about all these things that you feel like you haven't done or you want to do or you don't know how you're going to do, how activated does that get you on a scale of 0, where you're like, oh, it's cool, I got it under control, and 10, where you just feel like really overwhelmed by the disorganization?
Um, it's probably like a 5. I can do a really good job of just like compartmentalizing when I'm sorry, me too, doing the thing that I have to do. Like once I sit down to work, like I can just ignore all the other stuff, right? But yeah.
Okay. So this will be like follow the leader. I'm just gonna see if I can take a little edge off of the chatter in the brain that is around this overwhelm and see what we can kind of shift. And you're just gonna tap the same places that I'm tapping and just repeat after me.
Oh boy.
Nice deep breath to start. Inhale through the nose.
So you might have to give me some verbal cues because for some reason your picture's frozen.
What's wrong?
Oh, now I see you. I couldn't see you for a second, but you
Did I
might
freeze?
just, when you're say tap where I'm tapping, can you just give me the verbal of it so that I can?
Oh, okay. Are you gonna keep your eyes closed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're tapping on the side of the hand, karate chop point. Even though I feel overwhelmed
Even though I feel overwhelmed
and disorganized,
and disorganized,
I want to love, accept, and forgive myself.
I want to love, accept, and forgive myself.
Even though it feels like things would be a heck of a lot smoother if I was more organized. We're staying on the karate chop point. I'll tell you if we move.
Even though,
I feel like
sorry.
things would be a heck of a lot smoother if I was more organized.
Things would be a heck of a lot smoother if I was organized.
I honor these feelings and accept myself anyway.
I honor these feelings and accept myself anyway.
And still on the karate chop point. Even though it makes me feel frustrated and scattered.
Even though it makes me feel frustrated and scattered.
I'm open to the idea that I can find peace in the present moment.
I'm open to the idea that I can find peace in the present moment.
Now we're going to start moving through the other points, starting with the top of the head. All of this disorganization.
All of this disorganization.
Eyebrow point. It just feels like it's everywhere.
It just feels like it's everywhere.
Side of the eye. Every part of my life feels like it could use a little more attention right now.
Every part of my life feels like it could use a little more attention right now.
Under the eye. But it feels like it would literally take forever.
But it feels like it would literally take forever.
Under the nose. And I feel like it's all up to me.
And I feel like it's all up to me.
Like I have to do it alone.
Like I have to do it alone.
Under the mouth. And that feels shitty.
And that feels shitty.
I don't want it to take forever, and I don't want to do it alone.
I don't want it to take forever, and I don't want to do it alone.
Collarbone point there on your chest.
Hmm.
I don't know where to start.
I don't know where to start.
Or how much time any of these things would take anyway.
Or how much time any of these things would take anyway.
Under the arm, could be the same side or across your body, it doesn't matter. So I keep putting things off and avoiding them.
So I keep putting things off and avoiding them.
I'm just trying to compartmentalize.
And just trying to compartmentalize. That's a funny
Back
word.
to the top of the head. I feel like I'm procrastinating.
I feel like I'm procrastinating.
Eyebrow. And I know things would flow so much smoother if I did this.
And I know things would flow so much smoother if I did this.
And simultaneously, some of these things just don't feel important.
And simultaneous, you're using all the big words. Simultaneously, all these things seem unimportant.
Side of the eye. So I don't prioritize them.
So I don't prioritize them.
Under the eye. Because it feels more important to do other things than it does to clean out a drawer.
Because it seems more important to do other things than clean out a drawer.
And yet I get really frustrated when I see the disorganization around me.
And yet I get really frustrated when I see the disorganization around me.
Under your nose. And my inner critic tells me I should be more organized.
My inner critic tells me I should be more organized.
Under your lip, under your mouth there. My inner critic tells me I'd be more productive and successful if I wasn't so disorganized.
My inner critic tells me I'd be more productive and successful if I was more organized.
Collarbone. And I get frustrated when I have to look for things.
And I get frustrated when I have to look for things.
And I feel like I have less freedom of choice.
And I feel like I have less freedom of choice.
Because my life feels like it's cluttered everywhere.
Because my life feels like it's cluttered everywhere.
Under the arm. And there's so much clutter in my thoughts and in my head.
And there's so much clutter in my thoughts and my head.
Back up to the top of the head. Opening up to the idea that I can create organization.
Opening up to the idea that I can create organization.
Eyebrow point. And clearing these limiting beliefs.
And clearing these limiting beliefs.
This idea that it has to take forever.
This idea that it has to take forever.
Or that help isn't available to me.
Or that help isn't available to me.
Down to a cellular level.
Down to a cellular level.
Side of the eye. I wonder why it is that I've been avoiding this.
I wonder why it is I've been avoiding this.
Under the eye. Wonder why I let myself get so frustrated.
I wonder why I let myself get so frustrated.
Was there a time in my life that my disorganization caused a big problem for me?
Was there a time in my life that disorganization caused a big problem for me?
Just wonder if maybe that's part of the reason I'm avoiding it.
Just wonder if maybe that's the reason, part of the reason I'm avoiding it.
Under the nose. Opening up to the idea that I'm capable of having an organized life.
Open to the idea that I can have an organized life.
Under the mouth. And also that my life is okay as it is.
And also that my life is okay as it is.
That I can gradually step into organization.
That I can gradually step into organization.
I don't have to do it all today.
I don't have to do it all today.
Collarbone. I can gradually get rid of the things I don't need.
I can gradually get rid of the things I don't need.
And I can already feel how much clarity that's going to give me.
And I can already feel how much clarity that's going to give me.
Under the arm. And I can live in the process of creating flow.
And I can live in the process of creating flow.
That is the name of my podcast, after all.
That is the name of my podcast, after all.
So perhaps that's my calling.
So perhaps that's my calling.
To find more and more ways to create flow in my life.
To find more and more ways to create flow in my life.
I'm going to tap the sides of your fingers. You may need to open your eyes to see how I'm doing this. Just the sides. We're going to go through the whole hand just kind of as we go. Open to the idea of creating flow.
I'm open to the idea of creating flow.
Of letting it be easy.
Of letting it be easy.
Move to your first finger. Of releasing the frustration.
Of releasing the frustration.
Middle finger. Of realizing I can start with a feeling of mental organization today.
Of realizing I can start with the feeling of mental organization today.
Ring finger. And that as I create that, physical organization will naturally follow.
And as I create that, natural organization will follow.
Yeah, physical organization will follow.
Physical organization will follow.
In all the spaces where I work and live.
In all the places where I work and live.
All right, back of the hand between your ring finger and your pinky finger. With love, acceptance, tolerance, and understanding.
With love, acceptance, tolerance, and understanding.
I call my power back into my body.
I call my power back into my body.
Organization is available to me.
Organization is available to me.
And I am whole, complete, and powerful.
And I am whole, complete, and powerful.
All right, take a nice deep inhale through your nose, Joni. And exhale out through your mouth. My time zone, we were finishing that at 11:11, which seems like worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's nice.
How are you feeling now? How was that for you?
It's good. I definitely, as I'm in practice of looking at my thoughts right now through this idea of ego, it's super interesting how, like as much as I want to stay in the moment, then the like argument, like you would say something and then it would be like, oh, well, that's not true. Or like something crazy like would come in and I'm like, wait, what are you like? So I had to be like very concentrated to stay in the process, and not
Yeah.
let my like that part of my critical mind come in and be like,
That part actually would have been okay to bring in. Like those negative thoughts are actually great. A lot of times, if I'm like in private session with a client, we'll kind of let it kind of flow more like back and forth, where I might say something and they'll say it back. And they're like, yeah, but I'm saying this inside my head also, or whatever. And you can let all of that come through. And then as you're tapping those meridian points, you're kind of like releasing and dissolving those things right along with it. So I wouldn't say it's important to like avoid those things. I'd say if anything, bring them to the table. Or like you can do another tapping round with yourself where, you're like, even though I don't thoroughly believe that I'm capable of getting organized, I
yeah,
love, accept, and forgive myself. That can be like your setup 3 times. And then you could literally go through every reason. Like, I'm never going to do it. I always procrastinate. I don't like follow through on shit. How am I ever going to like it? Just let like rant, just let out all the stupid thoughts about like why you can't possibly do it. And they'll start to lose their power. That's fun too.
yeah, yeah, it's true. I believe that. And the other piece that came up for me too was just like interesting about um that it's not so funny. Like
What's going on with your throat, girl? Has that been
it's
going
just
on or is something moving?
no, it's just yeah, it's just energy moving.
My
Yeah,
throat chakra has been my biggie this last couple of months.
yeah. I have long history of like Hashimoto's and things, so it's usually the place that stuff is stuck. Um it was interesting about the like even like I crave it, but I don't think it's important. Like that struck me very true. Like I would rather do almost anything else. And
Right.
everything else is more important. And um yeah, so the value of it is not that like I crave it, but the value inside of me is not that high in that right now. So that was interesting piece to look at. I thought that was really like probably pretty key to changing behavior, right?
Yeah. For me, like getting my physical space in order, that does like that's such an energetic thing for me, where when my physical space in my home doesn't feel like tidy or the way that I like it, then I don't do any of the other things that might seem more important, as well as when it feels like it's expansive and it's nice to be here and it feels like fresh and tidy and organized and I know where to find things, which is not always an easy thing to know when you have 4 boys living under your roof and a husband and 2 dogs and things get misplaced all the time. But for the most part, I can always find things. So, and yeah, I like you, I get frustrated if I have to hunt for something and waste time like looking for something, then I'm like, something's out of alignment here. And that makes spending a weekend on a room worth it for me. It's like, I know what's going to happen after this. Doing it itself, not too much fun, but we try to make it fun. We put on some music and set timers. I always like working against a timer. It's like, how much can I get done before it's time to make lunch? Like
Right.
see
Yeah.
where we get to. And you know what?
Get that.
Sometimes a weekend isn't enough, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a 2 weekend room. Like, and that's
Yeah.
okay too. But I think the part of me that used to get like frustrated was the part that thought like, oh, I could actually get my house organized like in a month or in a weekend or whatever. And that's literally impossible. So I think when I was like, okay, cool. Well, you're gonna do this every couple of years and it's gonna take half the year, but we're not gonna like it's not gonna be like we're doing it the whole 6 months. Like we're just doing it off and on until it's done and following through until it's complete.
Yeah. And I think that's like a, you know, I don't, is that like perfectionist tendency probably? Like I like had this, like it took me a long time to even believe like, oh, I could clean the toilet and not the whole bathroom, right? And I just
Mm,
wouldn't do either, right? Like if I only had a few minutes it needed to be done, it's like, well, why would I clean the toilet if I can't clean the bathtub and the rest of the bathroom, right? Like it's a
yeah.
broken down analogy, but like simple, but I think there's a lot to that in this piece too, right? Like um in making it manageable, like breaking the piece down and I don't
Yeah.
have to do it all at once and it won't be for naught, right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
for me, there's also incentive in that once I start, like if I started with my closet or what have you, I'm not going to go through and do a full closet clean out again until every other part of the house has gotten done. So it's like incentive to keep things clean and tidy and organized because I know it's going to take time to get the other things done. So that I'm just realizing is like a little belief or mental thing that's come about in this because it's like I won't go back and like do a full clean out on any of the rooms I've already done until I do the other territory that hasn't gotten done yet, for better
Yeah.
or worse. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
yeah. Well, where would you say you are now on that scale of 0 to 10 with regards to the overwhelm and the frustration around your disorganization?
Well, I think I lied at the beginning. No, I didn't really lie, but I think once we went into the tapping, I'm like, pushing those feelings down to like they weren't as strong. So I think at the beginning, I would feel more like I was probably really a 7 or 8, and now I'm like a 4. So if I
Awesome.
was to say that
Well,
again, yeah,
way to recognize that too. Sometimes it's hard to assess before you kind of stir things up a little bit more, and see where they are. But still, that's cutting
yeah,
it in
it's
half
good.
in
Yeah,
a
it's
few
good.
minutes time. So yeah, and when I work with clients, this is kind of where I go, okay, what makes up the four? And I can see how in your case, what makes up the four is the fact that you haven't done the things yet, and that once you start to do them, you'll be able to like realistically make that budge a little bit more also, like once you
Yeah,
get in integrity with them. So even if it's just starting.
yeah, or even just yeah. Like I feel like even the smaller, like the toilet piece is like
Mhm.
even just writing down the things that need to be done, right? Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
even, and then
Good like brain dump on all the things that require
break it,
organization.
start to break some of that down or choose something to break down. Probably that's another already my mind was like, and then we'll break them all down. Well, I would never do that either because it would take forever. So
Oh no, start with like
gotta
one thing,
choose
break
one
it
thing
down.
and break it down. Yeah.
Yep, that's the reverse engineering that I like to do. Awesome.
Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
you've got it. I'm excited to hear what you decide to tackle and get organized. And I appreciate you trusting in me to tap along with and
Yeah.
sharing all your feelings about disorganization.
Yeah.
And
And yeah, and I super appreciate the session and appreciate our conversation on the podcast. And
yeah.
most of all, though, just like getting to know you in person was amazing.
Oh,
So
it was so nice. It was so
yeah.
nice. And for anybody who tapped along with us, I always love to hear about your transition, where you started, where you ended, little aha moments, kind of like Joni was sharing that were coming up from her and her consciousness as she did it. So feel free to drop me an email, Teresa@teresalearlevine.com, or just hop over to Instagram and send me a DM. That's actually a lot easier at Teresa Lear Levine. Joni, do you like to hear from people?
Yeah, I love to hear comments, feedback, and how it affects their life too. Yeah. So
What's the best way for
same,
people to get
probably
in touch with you?
I definitely think Instagram DM is a great place to find me as
And your
well.
handle there is?
It's at Flow with Dr. Joni.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yep.
much for tapping along with me.
Thank you.